Hey everyone, welcome back. It is Icon. Thank you so much for checking out another episode of Esports Analysis. Today, we are hopping on board with ENVOY. It's been probably a few weeks since we've really broken down a Hardpoint match with ENVOY, and for that matter, we haven't really been watching too much Chicago Huntsmen either. They've been a little bit of a delay. They haven't been scrimming all that much, or at least they haven't been streaming them, but it seems like we're back. The last few days they've been going strong. It just so happens that we were also covering the last event, CDL Florida. But with this, I'm excited to hop back on with ENVOY because, of course, we all know what he's capable of. But as we hop into the analysis, there's about 30 seconds left on P1, and right there you just saw ENVOY come up from his spawn, and they spawned P2, which means they were successfully able to flip from that P5 spawn where they started off the map. They flipped over towards P2. So as this is about to go down, even though they're down by 15 and those are the points that they gave up on P1, it's not going to hurt them all that much. At least it shouldn't hurt them all that much because now they have position for P2, and hopefully, if you're a Chicago fan, they're able to lock down that time. I will say, I didn't mention this yet, but obviously they're playing OGLA, so Dashy, Slasher, we all know the weekend that they just had as they ended up losing in the finals of CDL Florida, but as we get into this, the one thing that I'll point out real quick, let's go ahead and let's take a pause just so you guys can see exactly what's happening as I'm watching the mini-map. We are inside of P2, so that's the right-hand side. Again, right above my head, there's a map I draw on that from time to time. Right now, we're on board with ENVOY. He's inside of P2, and at the last moment when we were just watching, you can see it's kind of set up that way right now. He's peeking over towards the left-hand side of the map, and he had teammates over here watching the right-hand side of the map, which is great. Now, we'll see if they're able to hold that, but this is the ideal setup because essentially what happens is that makes OGLA spawn out more towards mid-map, and the further you can get pushed out, the farther back you push those spawns. So if you're to give up one side, then that's going to become a left side or a bottom side versus top side when it comes to P2. So we'll see exactly what happens. And with that, there's nobody else watching that left-hand side of P2. So it does look like if ENVOY was about to die, he's going to end up spawning on the right side, while OGLA will probably spawn on the left side. That's a nice series of kills there from Formal, Seth, RC's, ENVOY. They each got one, so we'll see. And right there, you just saw it. So since there's nobody pushed up on that left side, or if you're looking at the minimap, the bottom side of the map, then essentially what's happening is that it's becoming a split spawn. As ENVOY comes up off spawn right here, he's spawning the right-hand side of P2, and then that left-hand side of P2 is controlled by OGLA. Chicago was just able to push out that left-hand side, which is why the last 20 seconds or so from this hill are going to end up going to Chicago. And remember, as we left P1, they were down like 20-2, 20-3, somewhere in there. So they were effectively able to get almost every single point inside of P2, and that's massive. Now, we'll see where ENVOY comes up off of spawn, and he spawned over towards P5. So if you're talking about rotations real quick, this is a super job from Chicago of flipping spawns going into P3. So again, mini map above my head, they had P2, and what happened is they were spawning on this top side of the map, right? Well, since OGLA was spawning on the bottom side, they were able to push this out, and that's why ENVOY was able to get the rest of the time inside of P2. Now, as it's about to rotate over towards P3, they continued pushing that bottom side of the map. So they went through P4 and they were able to push out Woods, which is why as this rotated back to P3, that's why you saw ENVOY get this garage spawn, this P5 warehouse spawn, and now as it rotates from P3 to P4 to P5, they're on the beneficial side of the map. If you're talking about the money hills on this map, it's P2 and more so P5. P5 is probably the hill that's most important. If you can get a good hold on the left and right side of P2, then you can absolutely max out the time, as we just saw Chicago do on P2 on the first set of rotations. But as we're playing throughout here, if you can really get a strong hold on P5 and push up on both sides, then it's super easy to lock down all the time inside of P5, and that's what they're playing for right now. So inside of P3, they don't have control of P3, and that's really okay as long as they can contest and not really go too negative inside of P3. Again, remember, the end goal here is to just hold spawns and be set up for P5. So it looks like they're getting the last, I don't know, 5 or 10 seconds, which it is what it is. It's not going to end up winning you the game, but it's definitely going to help. So Chicago was able to get the last 10 seconds inside of P3. And now, as they make their push over towards P4, any time that OGLA isn't getting is beneficial for Chicago. So if you're OGLA at this point in time, all you're trying to do is you're just trying to take away from the lead that Chicago is going to gain by getting inside of P5. So if you can get 30 points if you're OGLA inside of P4, then that's going to not make all the time inside of P5 that Chicago is going to get so bad. So even though they're not building a lead right now, that is perfectly okay, because in about 15 seconds, this lead is probably going to skyrocket, and towards the end of P1, it's probably going to be somewhere in like the 130 to 37 range, somewhere in there. So they're probably going to have like a 100-point lead at the end of the first set of rotations, and so far, this map has been played perfectly. They gave up 15 or 16 points inside of P1, which isn't a big deal, but they had bad spawn to start. So they were able to flip spawn. They were able to hold down P2. They were immediately able to flip spawns for P3. And then when it came to P4, they were able to contest, not give up a ton of time. And then now for P5, they have map control. They have spawn control, although they just got pushed out from minecart. So we'll see if they're able to take this back. But really, this is just becoming a left side of the hill versus right side of the hill thing. So let's go ahead. Let's pause this one more time. So right now, they don't have control of the hill. And you can see as ENVOY coming up, he's coming over here towards B-Dom. And really what happens is that they're trying to push through boxes to get into P5. And at the same time, while that's happening, OGLA is spawning woods. So they're trying to get into P5 from this woods location. And really what ends up happening is there's a ton of gunfights that happen right in the middle here. And whoever is able to win that team gunfight in that choke point is who's going to get the rest of the time inside of P5. So every time you see ENVOY come around this corner right here, he's throwing his smoke and he's really trying to push. And this is what he's trying to do. He's trying to get kills right here in the middle of the map, because if they're able to get kills in the middle of the map, then they're able to overtake P5 and they're able to get the rest of the time. Now, they weren't able to do that. So immediately, P1 really isn't all that important. All they're trying to do is they're just trying to push through. They're trying to make sure that they get spawns for P2. And that's the worst thing that could happen. So ENVOY pushed through over towards the right-hand side of the map. As he got towards P2, he died. And then you just saw him spawn all the way out towards P5. So he spawned on the complete opposite side of the map of where you want to be. And if you're OGLA, this is fantastic, right? Because it could have, if they didn't overtake P5, this very easily could have been a 100-point game at the end of the first set of rotations. However, they were able to push through, they were able to get control of P5, and right now it's a 30-point game. So that's kind of the power of these money hills. When you're talking about P2 and you're talking about P5, if you just control one of them for like 40 or 50 seconds, all of a sudden you're back in the game. You could play terribly for the first 4 hills, right? Through 4 hills, OGLA only had 37 points, and they were able to lock down P5, and that's the power of P5 and P2 on this map. So as we're about to rotate through here to P2 and then the second set of rotations, the great thing about scrims is that I love listening in. I want you guys to be able to hear exactly what they're talking about in their team comps so that you're a little bit more in tune with what they're doing strategically. So with that, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to turn up the volume on them. Let's listen in and hear what's happening as we go throughout the second set of rotations.
You got me. There's top beam and front door.
TJ back door.
I smoked out window.
One's top beam, guys.
Up beam flasher, dead.
Yo, is it C-Dom right now? Right,
Yo, TJ's in the corner below you.
Yeah, red door.
Dude, slid through me, bro. There's 2 in the back.
Again, this is kind of becoming, this hill was much like what happened in P5. It was contested at first, so Chicago had control of the hill. Then it became contested, and then they lost spawns, and they weren't able to get back into it. So the same thing that happened on P5 happened on P2, and that's why this map is basically tied. So right there, that was a massive kill from ENVOY, because if he dies right there to Dashy, then he ends up giving up that back spawn. So if you give up that back spawn, as you go from P3 to P4 to P5, you no longer have spawns. Now, it didn't end up helping them all that much on the first set of rotations, but we'll see here if they're able to hold on and execute a little bit better than they did the first time. Let's go ahead. Let's listen to their team comms a little bit more.
I got your help, Alec.
I have a choke.
I'm trying to go middle.
I got naded.
Oh, I need in front of you.
Yo, you have to stack with Alec.
On ramp, absolute ramp. On ramp, on ramp.
Naded time.
Kenny, one to know.
In time too.
That's
There
just
it
time
is.
absolutely here.
I'm smoking.
Yeah, close on.
They pushed out. He's to your left, Alec. Nice, I killed the guy close. Rotate.
If we think about this for just a second, it's actually super impressive that Chicago even has a lead right now, because if you think about it, on the first set of rotations, they had P5, they lost it. So they lost P5. They had spawns for P2, lost P2. They initially had spawns as ENVOY got those kills back warehouse. So they initially had spawns for P3 and eventually P4 and P5, and they lost those also, and they still have a lead. So the first 4 hills went really well. After that, it's been a complete disaster, and they're still struggling, or they're still fighting towards keeping that lead. We'll see what happens again as we progress forward. Let's listen in.
Another one close, close. He's on rock.
I'm dead, I'm dead, no. TJ.
We flipped. Yo, left on me. Left, guys, left.
Call of Duty timing there as he's throwing a nade, he gets killed.
Yeah, I needed left.
You on this water?
We s-
Now this right here is massive time. So they got like the last 20 seconds inside of P4 and they were able to flip. So that was basically about as good as it can get. Now you have to get the cuts over towards Woods, because you can see ENVOY spawning exactly as he did last time through. He's spawning over towards BDOM, which means Woods is being pushed up by OGLA. They have to get somebody pushed up on that side. If they don't, this is just going to be another contested hill and a waste of map setup, map positioning as it went back to P5.
stunned. I'm just staying alive in the back.
I got TJ,
The back dead. Another one back hurt. Nice, good job.
I pinched again. Green and a spawning again.
Let's get hill.
Yeah, he's absolutely he's behind the black
I'm just
car.
flooding.
Behind black car. He's close.
Dead.
In green dash.
Front door. I'm looking boxes.
I naded it.
Boxes got me.
One went around. Dead.
He's in time.
Dude.
Back right.
That box he just sniped me.
Another one, 8 on.
One thing that I'll say real quick, not so much about Chicago, is that when it comes to OGLA, these were things that they weren't capable of if you're talking 3, 4, or maybe even 6 weeks ago, right? They were not capable of, if they didn't have map position and they didn't have control of a hard point, they weren't capable of locking that down, of infiltrating that hard point, and then flipping map position. It's just, you would see them do this time and time again where they would get spawned out and then they would just beat their head against the wall trying to get back into the current hard point. And now they've become much more competitive, and not only because of their slaying power, but I think that they're just learning to play the game a little bit better, just like everybody else is. It's not so much that like they didn't have the gun skill before, because obviously they did. Not much has changed. I just think that they're learning to play a little bit better as a team, and it's really starting to play off a little bit. So right now, there's 20 seconds in terms of a difference. There's 14 seconds before it rotates, and as we're about to rotate again, now Chicago has map positioning, so we'll see how that plays out. Let's listen in.
I spawn left. I'm going top hill. Yeah, go. Trying to get window.
We're spawning in back.
Yeah, they smoked me out window.
I'm stacking hill now.
Mid-track, Bruce. Absolute mid-track.
He's window right now, window. Front door dead.
He's spawn killing crates.
We spawn close.
We're spawning water.
Can you grab time? Someone grab time. Came in. Top dead.
Weak, pitching weak.
I'm just staying alive top,
All
guys.
crates now, all crates.
Yep, I'm watching front door.
Yeah, they're spawning bathrooms pretty positive.
This is exactly what we talked about on that first set of rotations, is that as I was watching the minimap in the top left-hand corner of the screen, just for the last like 15 or 20 seconds, Chicago had it set up to where ENVOY was watching the left-hand side of the map, nobody was pushing up, and they had teammates watching the right-hand side of the map. So they were able to control both sides, which is why nothing was really happening inside the hard point, because if you can control both sides, then inside the hard point, there's nothing that's going to be there. So with only a 6-point difference here, and having control of the map, having control of P3, and having control of BDOM here, obviously this is going to be the end of the map here. So let's go ahead, let's wait for the scoreboard. But ENVOY and SCUMP both dropped 40 bombs. Formal dropped 39. And the biggest thing about that, let's kind of wait for this play of the game, because there's one other thing that pops off the scoreboard to me that I really want to make sure that we're looking over and pointing out here, is that as you're watching this, of course, without a doubt, ENVOY and Seth, these 40 bombs are super impressive. Formal with a 39 just missed it. But one of the most impressive things to me is the fact that General went 34 and 36. So in the last week or so, we've been seeing Jordan go like double negative, right? He commented on my video from just a few days ago that things just weren't going his way. But on this one, 34 and 36, if he can do that, Chicago doesn't need him, especially the way that he communicates. Chicago does not need him to do the 45 and 33s that SCUMP does and the 43 and 34s that ENVOY does. Now, if he does it, that's fantastic. That's great. But they need him to be that other sort of role player, team communicator, organizer, calling shots, stuff like that. So when you look down below and you see Chino going 24 and 39, if that had been General, they probably end up losing this map. So although we had the 40 bombs and the really high scores from ENVOY, SCUMP, and Formal, I'm super impressed with what General did there. And if he can do that on a consistent basis, they will be a team to watch out for. So with that, guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode. If you have any comments down below, make sure you put them. I look forward to reading what you guys have to say and all the interactions. If you're new around here, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Leave a like before you head on the way. It really helps out the channel. And with that, thank you so much. I will catch you in tomorrow's upload.